She decided to go to the college to become a teacher. She had to succeed at the college entry exam in order to be accepted. Out of 264 students, she placed 5th on the list. Before she went to the Prince of Wales College, her grandfather Montgomery died, and it saddened Maud deeply. In college, her roommate was Mary Campbell, who was a distant cousin. Maud liked Mary because she had a sunny nature, although she could be quite sarcastic. Nevertheless, they had fun together. Maud was usually the leader of the jokes they would play on the professors. During the winter, the school lodgings were so cold and the food was badly cooked, and so often the same thing, that Mary and Maud started to call it ditto food. She got good marks and made many friends. She still wrote poems and short stories and sent them to magazines and newspapers. She sent a poem called The Violet Spell to the Ladies' World magazine, and they accepted it and offered 2 subscriptions to the magazine in payment. At the end of the school year, Maud was chosen to write an essay, and she read it at the commencement exercises. She wrote about a character in The Merchant of Venus, one of Shakespeare's plays that she studied in English class. Everyone loved her essay, and even the Charlottetown Guardian wanted to print it. Jim, the valedictorian, sweet-talked her into writing his speech for their graduation. She returned to Cavendish with a teacher's license, but Maud's grandfather would not drive her to any interviews because he was not very pleased that she became a teacher. Finally, she got a job by mail and had to relocate 200 kilometers west of Cavendish in Malpeque Bay. It was a one-room schoolhouse and a challenging job, but she discovered that she enjoyed teaching, although it was not fulfilling her lifelong dream to be a writer. She still continued to send poems and stories to newspapers, but only 2 were accepted. All the rest were declined. By the end of the year, she had almost enough money to go to Dalhousie to take some selected literary courses to improve her writing. She sent a letter to her grandmother and asked her for the rest of the money. Her grandmother agreed to give her the rest of the money, so Maud resigned from her teaching post. She only had enough money to stay for 1 year in school, but it was worth it. Maud began teaching again in 1896. Edwin Simpson, a second cousin, gave Maud his teaching job in Belmont. Edwin stopped by Maud's house often and soon fell in love with her. Though Maud didn't really love him, she thought that she might perhaps start to, and so she became secretly engaged with him. In 1897, Edwin found Maud another teaching job in Lower Betticue, and there she fell in love with a young farmer, Herman Leard. Maud knew, though, that she could not marry him because he would want her to be a farmer's wife and not do any writing. It did, however, give her the courage to break her secret engagement with Edwin. Maud's grandfather died in 1898, and she went back to Cavendish to live with her grandmother. Maud only saw Herman Leard one more time before he died of the flu in 1899. Maud spent a couple of weeks looking after her grandmother and writing poems and little stories. In 1901, she got a job in the newspaper The Daily Echo, and she had to leave her grandmother. She loved the job and was the only woman in the office. She was hired to check over the newspaper to make sure there were no spelling mistakes or errors. Maud did not earn much money, but she wrote stories and poems as much as she could when she had spare time. It worked quite well, and she was being published in many top magazines. Her newspaper job finished in 1902, and Maud returned to look after her grandmother. She was sad to leave the Daily Echo, but found it necessary to work on her own writing, somewhere peaceful and quiet. Some people thought that Maud was odd, trying to make a living by writing stories and poems. They snubbed her for it. She did not let this discourage her, although she was getting sick of writing silly stories that she called pot boilers. She called them this because it was the only thing earning the money to keep the pots boiling on the stove. In 1903, Maud earned $500 because of her writing, more than most men earn at that time. Every time a story or poem was rejected, she would send it on to another publisher. Sometimes she would get lucky from rejections. She sent a story to a magazine that would have paid $10, but it got rejected. She sent it to another publisher, and she got $100 for it. Maud did not like people to know if her stories were rejected or accepted. So, because she ran the post office for her grandmother, she would slip her stories into the mailbag when nobody was watching, and pull out returned manuscripts before anyone could see them. She would not allow rejections to discourage her. Maud soon found out exactly what kinds of stories different magazines wanted. Daily life was difficult for Maud. Her grandmother was quite a burden to her. She would still order her around, such as telling her how often she could take a bath, which was only permitted once a week. She would tell her what rooms could be heated and when to go to bed. Many men tried to court her, and although she enjoyed their friendship as soon as they proposed, she would get upset and put an end to the relationship.